Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode and edition of the Hybrid Ministry Show. My name is Nick Clayson. I, as always, am your host. Excited to be with you, and in this episode, we are going to be diving into our third platform that you should be focused on as a church in building out the 6-step framework for social media or churches in 2023. Now, this one is going to be a little bit of a zig or a zag, because my guess is, if you know me, you know my story, I am a youth pastor. And so I do this a lot from the realm of and position of being a youth pastor. And so this one you're going to be like, wait a minute, what is he recommending before what other one? Because, so far we've done YouTube and we've also done TikTok. And so probably your assumption would be that we would be moving on to Instagram. And if I were to rank platforms in their order of importance, it would go TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and then Facebook. But today we are going to talk about Facebook, and there's a few reasons why, and we're going to get to that, so make sure you stick around to the very end of the episode, because we're going to talk about the 3 primary reasons why you should start with Facebook as opposed to Instagram, especially if you're starting from scratch. And those 3 reasons are also relevant and prevalent if you're already on both of those platforms. There's just going to be some things and some technical linking things that you're going to need and want to do that are going to help you optimize your performance on both of those platforms, Instagram and Facebook. All right. Real quick, let's talk about, before we dive in, too much, I want to remind you, you can head over to our YouTube channel. If you are listening on a podcast, hit the link in the show notes and give us a subscribe there. That would help us out tremendously. If you're discovering us and watching us on YouTube, hit the link in the show notes over to hybridministry.xyz. That is the home page and home base for our podcast, and every single episode, including this one, which will have a link to the show notes, has a fully fleshed out transcript. So you can go and you can grab the fully fleshed out transcript for this episode and any of our past episodes, as well as that's where you can get the free download called Have I Already Ruined My Church's TikTok Account? And that is your complete guide to handing your phone to someone and say, hey, post me a TikTok, and if they have no idea what they're doing, that will walk them through step by step. All of that is available in our show notes. That's also available on our website. So give us a subscribe, give us a rating or a review. We would love it. And follow us in all the places. I personally am on TikTok and I am on YouTube, and I'm trying to grow on both of those places to just get the word out to help more people like you, church content communicators, church social media managers, youth pastors, part-time college students who got handed a phone from your pastor and said, hey, we should probably be on social media. Yes, I am here to help you, and that is my entire goal, is to help show you one of the ways that you can approach this in your church, in your life, and in your ministry. So without any further ado, let's hop into this episode of Facebook, the platform that Gen Z doesn't care about. Or do they? All right, so Facebook. Does Gen Z care about Facebook? So there was an article back in 2015 by Pew Research that found that 71% of teenagers from the age 13 to 17 say that they used Facebook. And at that time, it easily beat out platforms like Twitter, Instagram, and Snapchat. That's an encouraging number. And so for a lot of youth pastors, a lot of people working with Next Generation, a lot of people doing social media, it kept the impetus and the importance of making Facebook a priority, making it something that you continually should be investing in. All right. However, back in 2022, which is not that long ago from the drop of this podcast or the drop of this video, is only a year or so ago, it tells us a different story. So that number in 2015 was at 71%. But it has now dropped to that same age demographic, 13 to 17-year-olds, is now dropped to 32%. And you might be thinking then, like, why in the world are we making this a priority? Obviously, it's tapering off with younger people. It's really only relevant for older generations. And while our church may have a good crop of people in an older generation who are still using and active on Facebook, the reality is like that is dropping more and more. And that is true. And I will 100% affirm you. And if you do decide that you don't want to take on Facebook as a platform, I totally get that. Especially if you want to trend younger and be more relevant, because the reality is this is like even Gen X, millennials, boomers, they use some of the other platforms that we're talking about here. They're active on YouTube. Some of them probably do have a TikTok account. And so if you want to abandon Facebook altogether, you can. The thing is, reality is probably you as a church, you probably already have a Facebook account. It's already probably been established and it's probably been active for years. And so what do you do, and how in this, ever-shifting landscape do you continue to even use and reinvest in Facebook? I do think that there's a spot for it. I do think that there are some pertinent things that are worth you understanding and noticing. And I'm going to talk about those, and especially in the very final episode of this 6-step kind of framework, we're going to put all of these platforms back together, right? We're going to say here, with all these different platforms, all these different things we talked about, what is a full-fledged church social media framework and strategy? Taking all these pieces and putting them together. So you're going to see where Facebook fits into that. But the answer to this is why we think we should continue to participate in Facebook. The answer is twofold. So part number one, like we said in the last episode about TikTok, if you only have time to invest in one, invest in TikTok. I say that primarily for younger ministries, youth pastors, but quite honestly, I think I would still say that the purpose for that is true for even like a church, not just a youth ministry, like a church trying to reach people for their, their community, their town, whatever. Like nothing wrong with just investing in TikTok. And a lot of the things today that we're going to talk about are going to feel like a lot of groundwork. And so that might be boring and you might not yield as many returns on it. And so you're probably going to have to spend a day or a week slugging out some of these things, figuring out some of the things. However, if you do want to build out a fully robust, holistic social media strategy, like I said, we're going to put that together in the final episode of this little mini series that we're doing. Facebook needs to be a part of it. Not necessarily for the reasons that you might think, however. I will caveat this and say, in the ranking of importance for Gen Z and Gen Alpha, Facebook is very last on my list for the specific platforms to invest in, right? Like I've said, okay? However, your usage on Facebook, on Meta, is going to be for 3 primary reasons. And starting with Facebook's gives you an easier road to launch some other social media or, and this part's important, or marketing endeavors that you may be interested in, or your church or your pastor or your executive pastor might be interested in you carrying out, overseeing, and executing. All right. And so we're going to look at this as more of a foundation building as opposed to like going viral and drumming up a lot of interest and reaching a lot of people. Okay. So be that as it may, Facebook still plays a pretty crucial and important role. Before we go too much further, I do want to share one last stat with you. 32% of users on Facebook are teenagers. That isn't a lot, but that also isn't nothing. And those teenagers are still users of Facebook. They may not be contributors, but they are, as some social media people have dubbed, lurkers, which means they are viewing what's going on Facebook, and they will grow up and they will become the age of the adults in your church. And in addition to that, a lot of families have parents who spend a lot of their time on Facebook. And so if you're a demographic, if you're a church reaching families, you may not be reaching their teenagers, but you may be catering to and reaching their parents. And there is a benefit to doing that. All right. So let's dive into Facebook before, the history of it, and what it is now. Okay, Facebook before, and now let's go back to the beginning. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Okay, maybe not that far back. Let's go a little further. Okay, let's go to 2004. In 2004, you probably heard of a guy by the name of Mark Zuckerberg. Zuckerberg launched and started Facebook as a social media platform. He launched it in 2004 on Harvard University's campus. He was a sophomore, and his primary purpose there was to connect Harvard students to other Harvard students. And so back in the very original OG Facebook days, it was built primarily for college campuses so that you could see the faces of other college students, know their names, get to know them. But by the end of the year, the almost unimaginable had happened for Zuckerberg, and over 1 million users were on Facebook, and the reach had then expanded beyond just his simple campus, and the spread was like wildfire, and Facebook changed the game forever. Facebook is often thought to be one of the major contributors of ushering in the what am I looking for? The setting or gosh, why is this word so hard for me? I don't know what I'm trying to say, but ushering in the idea of Web 2.0. So Web 1.0 was just basic HTML websites, text on a screen. Web 2.0 allowed the users to actually be contributing, formatting, crafting what was being said. We are now, by the way, in a world of Web 3.0 where users can create their own reality. Right now, it's primarily through things like VR. But the algorithms, which are less social graph and now more discovery based, are helping you sort of find and create your own reality, which, by the way, I think is a little bit dangerous, especially if you are a pastor and you are anchored in the truth of God's word. However, as opposed to bucking that and saying that you need to just cast your phone into like a fire and not look at TikTok, I think you need to help people steward that they've been given. Because now, honestly, the reality is social media is not very social like it was back in the day. We've seen that Gen Z has watched millennials and Gen Xers use and lean into their community being all digital, and it has honestly yielded not very good results. So I honestly see a good pendulum shift in some of our Gen Z students and people that I interact with, because they lean into more real, authentic community. So why are they spending so much time on platforms like TikTok and YouTube? They're honestly there for entertainment more than they are for like social connection. And that's the thing. Facebook was built as a platform of social connection. And so now it is a legacy platform, and it's been around forever, and it is still a major player and a major contributor in the game. However, they are having to adjust to what TikTok and YouTube have been ushering in these last several years, that they've seen the younger generations adapt. And because Facebook knows that Great Aunt Betty is going to eventually no longer be a user at some point because she's not going to be living on this planet of Earth, they need to start catering to the younger generations if they want anyone to even adopt their platform. The reality is a lot of people are not huge fans of Facebook altogether, but whether they know it or not, they are using platforms under the Facebook umbrella. So all that being said, Facebook still remains the number one social media platform to this day based on number of users. According to an article, which we will link in the show notes of backlink.io, I always get that one messed up, backlink.io, Facebook presently has 1.9 billion daily users, which is 6.89% increase year over year. In addition to the massive usage that is found and seen by Facebook users and contributors, Facebook has been acquiring more and more products over their lifetime and life cycle. Here are some of the products that they've acquired. You maybe have heard of them: Instagram, WhatsApp, Giphy, Oculus, and many more. In fact, if my counting and calculations are correct, Facebook has a total acquisition of over 88 different products or companies or tech-like focused things, okay? And the total cost of those acquisitions is estimated to be north of $23 billion with a B dollars. So I will link that that article as well, because honestly, I didn't read all of them to you because you get really bored. There's really only like 4 or 5 that you probably actually recognize by name: WhatsApp, Instagram, Oculus, Giphy. The rest are like, what? And they just absorbed these companies into them and stole their intellectual property, bought their intellectual property to use for their behalf and their betterment, okay? And so as I was first sitting down to record this podcast and thinking about all this Facebook stuff, the reality is this: fast forward to October 2021, Facebook announces, this is the big shift here from Facebook back then to Facebook now. Facebook announces a change in their name from Facebook as the parent company to the name Meta. You probably know that. If not, you've probably seen it and been unaware that that is where that comes from. All right. And so the name reflects, as the company says, the name reflects the company's growing ambitions to be relevant beyond just social media. They want to build technology that will help connect people. That's what they say their ultimate goal is. I'll link that article in the show notes. But with the announcement of the name change from Facebook into Meta, this giant conglomerate of products that Meta has acquired over the years, it leads us specifically now to how you in your church can and probably should be using Facebook in your context here in 2023 as a part of the 6-step church social media framework. So without any further ado, let's hop in to reason number 1 why you should be using Facebook. Reason number 1, and the way in which you should be using Facebook in your church and in your ministry, is create a Facebook page. Now, Facebook page is the corporate side of Facebook. It is where businesses and corporations go to have their hours. It's where they link their website. It's where they, at some point in time, will run ads. And your church more than likely has a corporate company Facebook page. I would recommend that you start with a Facebook page, not necessarily because I think it's a great strategy for reaching people organically anymore in 2023. However, it is going to help sort of be the anchor for everything that you do on Facebook. And if you start there, especially if you don't have anything already launched right now, but if you start there, then sort of from there, the rest of everything else can kind of spread, which is one of the reasons why I have jumped Facebook over Instagram, for example, because Facebook is the owner of Instagram. And so if you start with that Facebook page, then you can sort of build things out from there. One of the things that you need to know about Facebook is it's not just a simple username and password sort of login. So if you're inheriting a Facebook page, what you need to do is you need to discover who the admin is on the Facebook page. The person who has a personal, specific profile, their first name and last name, they are an admin to an account, and that is who runs or who is kind of doing the Wizard of Oz behind the curtain managing of Facebook pages. That's how Facebook works. So, for example, I just moved to a church about 6 months ago. They had a Facebook page, and everyone that I asked, I kept asking to try and get login information for it. They're like, oh yeah, the username and password should be on this password document sheet that we have. And I just was like, no, that's not how it works. Like, it's not just like I log into Facebook. I have to log in as myself, Nick Clayson, on my Facebook page, and then I have to be made an administrator or an admin or an editor or a moderator or whatever the case might be, whatever the role is that is decided, that has to happen to me, my account, not a login into a specific place, okay? So when you start on this place, everything else can sort of be driven from that. The other reason that you would want to start with a Facebook page is that at some point you may want to run ads on your Facebook page. And you can do that either on Facebook. You also can do that through Facebook to your Instagram account if you find Instagram more beneficial to your audience. But you do that through the business suite, the Meta business suite. And so learning to run an ad is probably one of the most maddening processes, especially if you have no idea what you're doing, what some of the language means or whatever, if you're a complete noob. And so one time I interviewed my friend, former co-host of this podcast, Matt Johnson. He is a marketing freaking guru, and he has done some incredible things marketing, especially in the ministry space. If you are or have ever heard of or are familiar with the company Dare to Share, he was behind a lot of what they did and a lot of what got them out visible to a lot of people out in the world. And so he walks us through in a former episode, and I'll link that in the show notes, of how to set up an ad step by step, running a Facebook ad. So that's there for you. Hopefully that's helpful to you. All right, step number 2 is beyond the Facebook page, you should also link your Facebook and Instagram accounts. This is probably one of the most obvious or low-hanging fruit reasons why you should start with Facebook, because once you link them, then it's really no extra work especially if you start on the Instagram side, which we'll get to that in the next episode. But if you start on the Instagram side posting something, all you do is simply toggle on a switch that says also post to Facebook, and boom, you're posting the same content in two places. That used to be a no-no, that used to be something that you shied away from, but now it's actually something that I and many other church social media marketing managers encourage, especially with the current thing that every social media is focusing on, short form video content. It doesn't matter if it's also posted on Instagram, on Facebook. I did a thing the other day. We do this stupid game on our Instagram, on our TikTok, on our YouTube shorts called it's called ABC Cheese. So we have little craft singles, and we try to bite, with just two of us, we try to bite out a letter, and the other person has to try and guess what it is. And so I just was like curious, and I was like, how many views did this video in total get? And so I looked on YouTube, I looked on TikTok, I looked on Instagram Reels, and I looked on Facebook Reels, and in total, we had somewhere between 700 and 800 views on just that one stupid video alone. By posting it to all those different platforms, like one had 600, one had 100, one had 300, one had 200, you know what I mean? That kind of all adds up. And you start to think about it, you're like, dang, that's like 7, 8, 9,000, not 1,100, 900, 1,000 people reach. Like, it's a lot, man. Like that's something that churches, youth ministries would have been begging for in years past. And before, with Facebook pages primarily as the marketing tool and engine, you had to pay to do it. And you still do if you want to market stuff, but you can kind of like punch your lottery ticket with any of these reels or short form video and just blow up, or not even blow up, but just get a few hundred views across 4 platforms. That adds up to north of 500, north of 700, north of 900 views on any single video. I think most people would say that that's worth it. All right, the third and final way and path that I think you should take on Facebook is create a Facebook group. According to a 2021 study, there were approximately 233 million Facebook users in the U.S. alone. 18.2 of those users belong to the 18 to 24 age group, while 18% of those users are 35 to 34 years old. So in total, you're looking at almost 40% of your users are between the age of 18 and 44. So while your teenagers, your youth ministry might not be spending a lot of time on Facebook, other platforms, other people, older demographics definitely are. And I think that one of your largest wins as a church is to create a group, because that is where you can make community on social media feel intimate. And in fact, it's probably one of the only platforms that offers a closed, sort of intimate community style feel. And so I do think of all of the features that Facebook does have to offer, you can have a group. And so again, if you start with a page, then out of that you can create a group that's connected to that page, and you can post as the page admin, or you can switch your profile and you can be interacting as yourself in the group, and you can make that switch. And they've started to make that a lot easier. If you go onto the page on your phone or on your browser, it'll give you a little notification in one of the corners somewhere that says you're interacting as the brand, you're interacting as the page, or you're interacting as yourself. And then it just gives you a button there. Do you want to switch? And you click switch, and it switches over between yours or your page. And so you can make some of those things. You also have the opportunity to go to the business suite and schedule some stuff. You can also link and schedule that over to your Instagram. And they now offer scheduling for Reels. They offer scheduling for stories, which were not things that they offered previously. All the schedule tools really only posted like static images to pages and your Instagram grid feed, but now they're starting to offer more. They do, in my personal experience, I've really only been experimenting with schedulers for a little bit here now, but they do seem to choke down your organic reach. All of those platforms like it when you post live time. There really is no way around that, no matter how much you try, no matter how much these like schedulers promise you. You're going to just have better performance on all of your stuff if you are posting it. But that's a value proposition that you have to weigh through, especially if you have a million other responsibilities. Is it worth it to peace of mind, have it scheduled and you don't have to worry about it? Or is it something that you should, wade into and navigate? Choice is yours. It's kind of up to you. So one of the best things that you can do though as a church is to run a Facebook group, and over time, you don't even have to be supplying that with a lot of content. The content hopefully will be generated by the users that are already a part of your Facebook group community. Well, everyone, once again, thank you so much for hanging out for this entire episode. I hope that you found this episode helpful. Like I said, the Facebook episode is a lot more focused on nitty-gritty groundwork, building up some stuff so that you can build out a more robust and full social media strategy. We are going to be diving into that in the future episodes. But coming up next, we are finally moving on to Instagram. We're going to talk about some strategies and some reasons behind how you can be using Instagram effectively as a church in your 2023 social media framework. In addition to that, before we get to the very final piece where we put it all together, we are going to talk email and texting and website. And so those three things are also critically important, I think, to sort of serve as a backdrop and or as a lead generator for some of these other social media platforms to your already existing church audience that you have access to through a database, an Excel spreadsheet, or whatever the case might be in your particular context. Again, excited to be with you and excited to be right here now on the downhill slide of our 6-part church mini-series on church social media in 2023. If you found this episode helpful, do me a favor and please send it to a friend, share it, rate it, review it. All those things are incredibly helpful to me, and they're a free way for you to just give back in a very small way to our podcast and the work that we've been doing here at Hybrid Ministry. You can also check out free transcripts that we provide for you for every single episode, and that's over at hybridministry.xyz. Hit the show notes for all the articles that we mentioned, for all the other episodes that we referenced, for all the other social media places that you can follow me. And until next time, and as always, stay hybrid.